Hello everyone, it's Lesley Oman here from Hungry Hefty Crafts. I'm back and I have another video for you guys. I have missed you, and today I've got an interactive card. You know I love them, and I'm featuring Lawn Fawn, the Octopi My Heart stamp set and matching dies. I've also added on here some stamps from the Mermaid for You set. I thought that they would work really well together. So I'm starting off today with some smooth white cardstock, and I've cut out a panel using the fancy scalloped rectangle stackable set, the largest one in that set. And I've also cut out a frame by adding the largest rectangle from the small stitch rectangle set, also from Lawn Fawn. And that's going to be because I'm doing a shaker card. So while I've got my frame together, I'll also cut out a layer of foam. And I'll work on this scallop rectangle for my background. This is a fun new die that I picked up on my travels. They're from Cherry Lynn Designs, and it's called the Circle Piercing Tool. So it doesn't actually cut out the element, it just pierces little holes. You can use them in coordination with some circle dies that they have in their collection as well. But I thought it'd be a really fun way to add some circle texture to the back of my card. It's hard to see on the video, but maybe you'll see it in the photos a little bit later on. I'm going to create an underwater scene. So let's create a little sandy bank so that all my sea creatures, and I can put some shells and things at the bottom. So I've used a scrap piece of smooth white cardstock to cut off the bottom edge of that scallop rectangle, and then I've used a simple stitched hillside border to cut a nice curve so I can have some ground at the bottom. Now this is a new stamp set called Octopi My Heart. My sweet friend Taniesa bought me these as a present. Thank you, Taniesa. And I'm stamping this onto just a scratch piece of cardstock. I want to have my greeting, and I'm going to cut that out using one of those fancy scalloped rectangles. But I'm stamping this first of all with some pigment ink. Now I wanted it to be a bit more purple, so when I first stamped it, it was a bit too pink, so I stamped it again using a bluer ink, and that really toned down the color, which was great. Now I've used one of the smaller sets, or the smaller dies in this set, but it was too fat, too tall. So I'm using that partial die cutting technique to trim that down. And the holes at the bottom of that section are a little bit bigger than the ones at the top, but I'll cover that up and I'll show you how I do that a little bit later on. I'm using some scattered straw and tea dye distressing to bring some colour to my sandy bank. But for the background, I'm going to be using the ink smooshing technique. So I'm using my distressings, and I've got some packaging here, just an old package from Lawn Fawn, but any sort of smooth surface, like a piece of acetate over a white piece of card, would do just as well. And I'm tapping my ink pad onto that smooth, slick surface and then spritzing it with some water. And then I'm taking a spare piece of acetate to pick up that ink and transfer it over to my background. I like this technique with the acetate. It feels a bit awkward when you do it the first time, but you get some awesome results with it. You build up the layers, and I think it looks really pretty. For my stamping, I'm using Memento Tuxedo Black ink because I'm going to use my Copic markers today. I've got the Octopus from the Octopi My Heart stamp set. I've also stamped the little starfish from the So Jelly stamp set from Lawn Fawn. And then the other bits and pieces are from the Mermaid for You collection. For some of these solid images, I'm using some Simon Says stamp coloured inks, just so I can have a little bit of colour variation on my card. I've got some coral and some little seaweeds, and I'll also stamp a couple of little fish as well. For the Copic colouring, I am only adding really 1 or 2 colours for each of my designs because they are teeny weeny, but the most colouring was in the octopi themselves. One I wanted to be, I guess I like a girl octopus. So it is a pink one with a sort of purple hue on it, and the other one is going to be my little octopus dude and he's going to be a darker color with some blue tones coming in. So I've added some purples around the outside of each and then added the other color on the insides and just kept working that until I was happy with the blending. And I added some dot detail as well, just to have a little bit of texture. Once they're all colored, I could run it through my Cuttlebug using the coordinating dies. Now, I didn't have the die for the starfish, but luckily it's quite easy to cut out, so I just used my scissors to fussy cut that. Back onto my frame now, I've added some thin double-sided sticky tape all around the outside edge, so then I can also add a layer of acetate. And then I'll add some adhesive all around the outside and stick on that layer of foam. I'm just going to use glitter in my shaker today, so one layer of foam will be sufficient for what I need today. If I wanted to add sequins or beads, I probably would have needed 2 layers of foam. Now I want to have my greeting on the front here, so I'm laying this kind of where I want it to be and then positioning each of my elements in behind. So figure out what way I want my scene to look. I'm sticking these down with some Zots bling glue dot things, and they're perfect because they're teeny weeny and they hold so securely. I'm going to stick this down here, but I'm also going to add a layer of foam behind this greeting. This is just so that the center of my card is a bit more robust and it doesn't sag in the middle. And I'm going to do the same behind the octopus on the right. So I've die cut a layer of foam using the same die, positioned it where I want it to be, and when I assemble the card, I'll put the octopus right on top of there. But let's get ready for the shaker bits. I'm using my powder tool to get rid of any static in there. And before I put the glitter inside, I want to add some adhesive around the outside edge of my background panel. For the inside of my shaker, I'm using these ice chipped glitter from Honeybee Stamps. It's amazing. It looks so pretty. It's like little shards of glass. And I'm also adding some blue glitter, which is from an old Making Memories set. Then I can use the corner of my Misty tool to line up the 2 layers of the scallop rectangle, and it gets lined up perfectly. So let's add my octopus on top. And the little guy on the top has got a layer of foam underneath him on top of the acetate. Now it does say you Octopi My Heart, so I had to add a heart, and there is a cute little stamp that is in that same stamp set. So I coloured that in and I die cut that out. I'll stick that right above my octopi. So you can see how I use some of that little fish to cover the holes and the starfish at the bottom, to cover the holes in the bottom of that panel, and that hides the fact that each of those holes were a little bit misshapen. I added some Wink of Stella glitter pen to the heart and to my little starfish, and then I covered the heart with some glossy accents to give it a nice glossy sheen. Now all I need to do is to stick this onto another scalloped rectangle, and I will have a card with these cute little octopi. I think these are absolutely adorable, and I'm so happy that I got to play with them. Thanks again, Taniesa, for buying me that Lawn Fawn stamp. Check out some more of my videos by clicking on the buttons here, and you can also follow me on social media at Hungry Heffy. That's me. Until the next time, have a great day. Happy crafting. Bye.